the Folorunsho on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/lsw/TT Radio or search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TT Radio.
So welcome. So today on this lovely bank holiday, I will be joined by Hailey Hughes. I'm really excited because, as you know, we all resume back to school this week, and for a lot of people, everybody's dreading that. I don't really feel like, if I'm being completely honest, that I've fully recovered from last academic year, and there's a bit of me that is, a bit apprehensive, I should say, about returning to school, because last year was very difficult. But actually coming across Hailey's book, Humans in the Classroom, does kind of ease that feeling. It's reminding me about why I got into teaching, and it has, reared me back into getting excited about seeing the students and making a difference, because ultimately that's why we have come into teaching. And there's many stories within this book that I can't wait to explore. Some teachers, that I've known before and I've followed on Twitter, and others that I've, never come across. I'm really excited to explore these stories. And, reading these stories, I've realized that next time I'm hosting a detention, I'm actually going to photocopy or put into PDF one of the teacher's stories from this book, and make one of the students read it, because it's important for students to know that teachers are humans as well. And also for us to know that we are humans, because sometimes we can get lost in the job. I just wanted to read a bit about the book. So the blurb of the book says, that teachers are the lifeblood of our schools, inspiring and nurturing and motivating their students. In the book, it explores the human side to educators, because that can get lost within the systems, within trying to increase grades and so on. And they do this Hailey does this by revealing their experiences and their personal lives, and what has made them into the teachers that they are today. From the tragic to the exciting, teachers have such an amazing story to share. And I've, been into, I break a lot of anthology series like Modern Love on Amazon. That's really good anthology. And I was just thinking, whilst I was reading this, that this should be made into a series as well, because I feel like there's a lack of respect for teachers, especially during the pandemic, whereby teachers were seen to be lazy, or teaching is made to look easy. That's not the case. But I feel like if this was made into a series, on Netflix or Amazon Prime, or on ITV, whatever, I think a lot of respect will be revitalized into the profession. So I do have Hailey joined with us. So good morning on this bank holiday to you, Hailey. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Can you hear me, Emily?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you so much for joining me and persevering through the difficulties, because I literally logged onto my laptop around 8:45, and then suddenly it shut down. I think it was installing something, and I was just really annoyed. But as teachers, we know we can't ultimately depend on technology.
No.
So that reminds me about that. So thank you again about for joining me. And I've got so many questions to ask you. And one I wanted to start off by is, how are you going to enjoy your bank holiday? Because it is bank holiday today. Have you got anything planned with your family, or?
Not really. I'm delivering CPD tomorrow to a school
Wow.
in London. So
Yeah.
I'm just planning that. And then I've got the Research Ed National Conference on Saturday. So I've got to
Oh,
do my
yeah.
presentation for that as well. So it's a working one, I'm afraid. But I haven't had a summer holiday because
Yeah.
I left classroom teaching a couple of weeks ago. So I'm on Civvy Street now working through the holidays. So that's been an interesting adjustment to make.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. So you're just literally working, through it. We don't stop sometimes as teachers. So, so I wanted to, first and foremost, ask you, why did you write this book, and what did you intend for the purpose to be? Because story upon story, I personally did feel, inspired. I kind of remembered as well, like the why, the purpose, as for me becoming a teacher.
Yeah, well, that was exactly it, to be honest. You've hit the nail on the head. So, it all sort of stemmed from quite a funny conversation that I had with one of the students that I taught, which I'm sure that we've all had, where they'd seen me in the local Tesco. And I came in on the Monday and they were like, "Miss, we saw you in the Tesco." And it made me laugh because, 15 years of such comments of students thinking that we live in the stock cupboard and we don't really have lives. And it led me really to posting on Twitter about it, probably about 2.5 years ago now, because I've had quite an interesting journey into teaching, which I'm sure you'll touch on. And I just wondered, how many other teachers have had fascinating backgrounds, have got interesting hobbies that their students just know nothing about. And I'm a great fan of the Humans in New York series that runs on social media. I don't know whether you've ever seen that, but essentially it's a man called Brandon who walks around New York meeting really interesting people and just telling their stories. And I find them really inspirational. So I thought, you know what? I think there's mileage in this for a teacher one. And that was really how the book came about. But for me, I'm very, very passionate about retaining experienced teachers. And I think that that is something that doesn't get spoken about enough. I know obviously recruiting new entrants to the profession is equally as important, but year after year, there are many hundreds of experienced teachers leaving the profession. And I wanted to celebrate those teachers and also to inspire people and show how fantastic teachers really are.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much. It is. I really do love the book. Especially like, going, as I said earlier, going back into school this week. It's just got me, rearing to really make that difference. And something that I've come across in this book, not everybody, in the book knew that they wanted to be a teacher, but when they get into it, they realize that actually they want to make that difference. And that seems to be a common theme for a lot of people within them, making that difference, the human interaction. And I think that's why online teaching was very difficult, because you're literally talking to blank screens. You can't see you can't see the students. It felt lifeless, literally. But when you're in the classroom full of students, when you see faces in front of you, that's where you feel fulfilled. So yeah, your story in particular is just fascinating. I really loved it, and there's so many aspects of your story that I love. Which I don't want to give too much away, but you talk about your time within education, how you didn't really, respect authority. Then you talk about, how the modelling career, journalism, and then how you got into teaching, and then the impact. It's really profound. And I think what touched me the most as well was, how you persevered despite going through, waiting for a child for about 10 years, I think you said, and dealing with several miscarriages. And you spoke about, dealing with, gaining weight, which we all, I think, especially through the pandemic as well, that you dealt with it. And you said you joined Slimming World, and, you sorted that out. So there's just so much within your story that really touched me. And I think for me as well, sorry, because it's the fact that your beginning did not look at all like where you've ended up. Like, if you were to tell, I don't know, 14-year-old Hailey, or 12-year-old Hailey what you were to do now, what do you think she would say?
I think she'd probably laugh in my face, to be honest, and say, yeah, whatever. You know, I speak a lot about this on social media and deliver CPD up and down the country on it. I did come from a very disadvantaged background. You know, mother was just 16 when she had me. Eldest of 8 kids. You know, didn't have much to eat as a child. You know, holes in shoes, all the usual things that children who've come from disadvantaged backgrounds might talk about. And you know, I didn't like authority, and at secondary school I was an absolute nightmare. So when I actually began to train to be a teacher, I think I'd say it in the book that I went back to my old secondary school, and I remember some of the staff sort of laughing and couldn't believe that I was actually going to become a teacher. So yeah, I mean, I'm a very unlikely teacher candidate. I'm really honest about the way I used to speak about teachers. I'm embarrassed about it now. But, you know, when I was doing my English degree, I wanted to be a journalist and did achieve that, as you mentioned. And I used to think that teaching was something that people did when they couldn't think of what else to do with the degrees. And, you know, I'm ashamed of that now. I used to think teachers worked from sort of 8:30 till 3:30 and were lazy, you know, all the horrible stereotypes that we see in the press now. And, you know, 15 years of being in the classroom has taught me that the opposite, you know, is absolute truth.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, because honestly, I just was reading it and I would never think, because you know you're really big on social media, you've achieved a lot, you're best-selling author, you know, you deliver CPD, and I would never kind of put your start to life now, like you've literally, like, you know, turned it around. How would you say that, you know, your childhood and your education journey, not just as a student but also, you know, the initial steps of getting into teaching, shaped you as a person now?
Oh, well, it shaped me massively. You know, I'm absolutely dedicated to, you know, helping students from disadvantaged backgrounds achieve whatever they want to achieve. You know, and making my place as kind of an educator, really, as a leveler for students to help them, and also to act as a role model, really, of what is actually possible. You know, and not every pupil from a disadvantaged background wants to go to university. You know, that's why I made it clear, really, to say when I answered you then, that it isn't about kind of encouraging every single person to go to university. People might want to do apprenticeships, but for me, you know, education really is the key, and having that positive role model. And, you know, there's been lots of research done, hasn't there, about people being able to achieve things if they can visualize themselves actually doing it. And I think that's really important. So yeah, it's had a massive impact on me for sure, and probably made me the educator I am today.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And like you did touch on this, you know, in the first chapter talks about, you know, your journey, about why you became a teacher. Do you want to explore that a bit further? I know you start your initial steps in career work was in journalism, and you know, you wrote about your days in journalism, and I was like, oh, that sucks. Yeah, do you want to explore that? Tell us that a bit further, please.
Yeah, so I always wanted to be a journalist, and I didn't want to be a local newspaper journalist. It was always going to be national for me. And I remember having lots of naysayers all the way through school, college, university, telling me that there was just no way that somebody from my background was going to make it straight to be a national newspaper journalist. And I'm the type of bloody-minded individual that if somebody tells me no, well, I absolutely make sure I do it, essentially. So I did it. I managed to get on a graduate traineeship at a quite notorious national newspaper that no longer exists because it was shut down for phone hacking. So that identifies it. And, you know, I told myself I loved it probably for a good 2 years. And then finally, you know, came to the realization that actually I hated my job. They used to make me do like really morally repugnant things, to be honest, in pursuit of the story. And when I said, well, I'm not sure about doing this, and showed a bit of hesitation, it was always very threatening, hostile behavior, like there's 1,000 people who want this job, you know, you better do it. So yeah, it was an interesting time. I had amazing experiences. I'm glad I went through it. You know, I got to go to Live 8 in Berlin, you know, celebrities' weddings, royal weddings. huge experiences.
Yeah.
And being, there's nothing more exciting than being in the thick of kind of national news, really. And I met some amazing people, but I'm glad that it's no longer the world that I live in. I wanted to do something that had a bit more moral purpose, really, and fulfilled me as a human being.
It's so interesting how, like, on the outside looking in, somebody could see that, you're going to these events, royal weddings or, different things that everybody would envy, but you probably would have gone home feeling so empty. And that kind of led you into finding a career that would give you that fulfillment. And that's, that is why I have gone into teaching, because I do feel fulfilled. I do feel fulfilled seeing that aha moment in students' eyes or on their face when they finally get something, or making a difference, sharing my story or just saying a kind word. I don't always get it right. I'm not trying to sound like a saint. Sometimes I go between Miss Honey and then Miss Trunchable. But yeah, so I'm not gonna try and make myself out to be some sort of saint. I don't always get it right, but that's what I do love about humans in the classroom. It talks about the ups, but it also talks about the downs. And I can see that in your story you did have a few downs, and it's not just your story but a lot of stories within this book. But I see that the thing that kind of got people ticking was that human interaction within the classroom. It was the students essentially as well. I wanted to ask you, still on your story, because there's lots to dig here. Another thing that really touched me was the fact that you said in your first school you were encouraged by your head teacher to be yourself, basically. And I really like that, because I feel like sometimes we're in a society, and I felt like that not in my school actually, like in my second placement, my PGCE, that's another conversation, but conforming to something that you're not, it kind of stifles you. And I remember that you said in your story that even when you worked in journalism, you got told off for wearing a brown suit and you had to go home and change to like a black suit, but you've got tattoos, but you were really encouraged by your head teacher to literally be yourself. So do you want to talk more about that and how you use that, I guess, to build relationships with students?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sort of suggesting for 1 minute that, my tattoos have made me a better teacher at all. But I've always been somebody who is kind of relentlessly myself, essentially.
Yeah.
And I have always said that I probably wouldn't ever work in a school that wanted me to cover my tattoos. Number one, it would be impossible, because I would literally have to wear a whole bodysuit because I have so many.
Yeah.
But so I wouldn't, just the practicalities of it, really. Imagine in summer,
Yeah.
it's a nightmare. And also as well, I think it's really important that students are able to find role models of all different types within teaching. And people have said to me, oh well, you might encourage students to get tattoos. Well, I've never known a sort of teenage boy or girl who says, I really want to be like my teacher. Come on, guys, we're the most tragic people ever. So that's never been the case. And kids have said to me, oh, I'm going to get a tattoo when I'm 16, and I talk them out of it and say, you don't know who you are until your 20s, wait for it. So I'm definitely not encouraging tattoos. But my first head teacher, John Sharples, was an amazing guy, and he just knew how to get the best out of everybody, essentially. And he allowed me to grow, to be myself. And I've had two really fantastic head teachers like that. I've never had to cover my tattoos, and I've managed to have a successful career sort of despite that, really. And I think that's important.
It is. And it's just I feel like you mentioned something so pivotal there. You said you attach your growth to the fact that you were able to be yourself. And I feel like when we have to hide our personality or kind of conform to a culture that it's just not us, like we don't really have to identify with, it stifles our growth. I want to just, just say hi to some people in the chat. I can see Honest 505505 says hello everybody here. So hello to you. And Islo Mar Hussein says thanks. So thank you back to you. And thank you to everybody listening in. If you want to put in the chat, where you're listening from, that would be great as well. So thank you to everyone. And if you've got any questions for Hailey, please do call in or type your questions in the chat. Still explore your story, Hailey. I wanted to talk about, the times where you were dealing with several challenges. What got you through those moments? And what advice would you give to teachers that have gone through those moments? So, for example, you went through several miscarriages. You were you spoke about in the book, you were teaching, other people's children, but you really desperately wanted your own child, to love. And I'm sure there's so many people that can identify with that. So what advice would you give to others listening that are going through personal challenges? Because I've been through a few by literally highly getting out there is difficult thing, let alone students in front of you, showering, just the simple things that we take for granted is so hard. But to add on top of that, dealing with 30 human beings in the classroom, like, what advice would you give to teachers? Because you've been through it.
That's a hard one to answer, really, because we're all kind of unique. I mean, I think for me, work was an escape from those problems. As you alluded to, I've been very honest on social media as well about the infertility issues that I had. We have a 13-year-old boy, so we were able to have a child, 13 years ago. But then for 11 years, really, we tried desperately to have another baby, and that did lead to 9 miscarriages, as you mentioned. And it was difficult to get up every day and come into school. But I did really, for me, work was an escape where I could switch off from that stuff that was going on. And, I am very lucky in that I had a child already. I know many people struggle with infertility and don't have that. So I suppose it was about reminding myself of that, about how lucky I am, really, and just using the support of fantastic colleagues. For me, the school that I worked at until very recently, my colleagues were like my family. My family lives sort of 60, 70 miles away. So I think the importance of having fantastic colleagues around you is just, you can't overemphasize it, really. I think the most challenging thing I went through as a teacher was the loss of students. I had a boy in my year 7 form who died very suddenly. And that was just an awful experience. And then a girl in my year 11 class who I'd taught for 4 years who also died very suddenly. And, I think dealing with that, with the emotions of that, of how invested you were in that young person, the relationship you had with them, but at the same time, knowing that the pain that you're going through can't be anywhere like what their mother or their father or their family are going through. It's a difficult one, really. But I mean, I think colleagues for me were an absolute game changer, and just utilizing the support systems that you've got around.
Thank you, Hailey. So just recapping on what you said, so having support systems, also being positive with what you have, because you spoke about you reminding yourself that you did have your 13-year-old son. I think those are the 2 things I'm going to take from what you said about kind of overcoming those down times in our careers. I want to now explore the other stories within the book. I just love the diversity of it. You interviewed people from America, Australia, Black, white, Irish. You've got a teacher that was hard of hearing. So it's just so much diversity, within this book. What? How did you find all these teachers?
Well,
first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, I approached some of them because there was some teachers that I was really keen to have in there. Rita Pearson being one of
Oh
them.
yeah.
So I mean, obviously Rita sadly passed away a few years ago now. So I knew, for me, you know, Rita was a huge inspiration to me as a MUT. I remember being shown her video about every child having a champion when I was a young teacher, and just it resonated with me so much. So I was really keen to get Rita's daughter telling her story. And then there was a few other teachers I approached as well, but mostly, to be honest, it was call outs on social media. And people responded to those. And I knew that I was looking for particular types of experiences, and that helped as well, sort of having that idea about, you know, what type of experiences I was looking for.
Oh, I love that. And which story from the collection would you say impacted you the most?
Oh, that's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Because there's loads, to be honest.
Okay, let's pick like 2 or 3.
I think Gwen Mayer's story impacted massively on me because, you know, it was just, Gwen's story is one that a lot of us are familiar with because of obviously it being in the news. And you know, just speaking to her daughter and hearing about what an inspirational teacher she was, and so that really affected me. And I'm trying to pick another one from all the ones I had now. I think that I also really identified with Caroline Spaulding's story as well, because she was pregnant during the pandemic, and as somebody who has also really been honest about her fertility struggles in the chapter as well, I really identified with that, and I couldn't imagine, sort of, after undergoing fertility issues, how scary it would be to actually be pregnant to the global pandemic. So I mean, they were 2 that stood out to me, but every single one taught me stuff, to be honest.
There's just so much. I really did like Rita Pearson's. I really liked Catherine. I'll never say her surname. Berber Singh. You know, the fact that she creates a safe space for in her school, you know, because of the bullying that she went through as a child, and it kind of shows that, you know, our upbringing, our background kind of definitely impacts us in terms of the choices that we make as educators, and a culture that we try to build within our classroom or within our schools where much higher up.
Yeah, I mean, massively. I mean, I was really keen to interview Catherine, actually. She was one of the people that I approached. I often think that Catherine's media persona riles people up the wrong way, or some people. And I wanted to show kind of the moral purpose behind what she does. And, you know, I would say that politically, I am probably directly in, opposition to really a lot of the things that Catherine stands for. But actually, I found myself really resonating with the things that she said, nodding away, and I really liked her. So yeah, hers is a great story.
So how did you interview them on the phone, or was it more like they had to write? How did it happen?
It was a mixture. So some were on the phone, some were via email, and then we went back in 2. Some were Zoom calls, some were in person. It just completely depended on the availability of the people.
And one thing I noticed within the book is that some of the teachers, they've had families, you know, that were teaching, and they kind of tried to run away from that, but they were called back, you know, into teaching. Is there any story in particular that you kind of remember or resonated with you in terms of that happening? The fact that
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily a story in particular, but what made me laugh is like how many of the people that I interviewed were quite naughty at school.
I was really at school.
Yeah, and weren't really, teacher material, should we say, didn't really get on with the teachers. Actually, quite a lot of them as well didn't have kind of role models, to be honest, as teachers. And then that really spurred them on to go away and become that role model for other pupils. So I would say that that's something that came up repeatedly in a lot of the interviews, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I can definitely identify with that, because in secondary school I wasn't the most I was a class clown, and naughty. I'm embarrassed to say, what I used to do to teachers. Like, they used to call my mum so much that my mum started to call the deputy head teacher by his first name,
Oh
and no
God.
longer. Yeah, I get so, I'm so embarrassed. I can't even say it, but because of that, I think that's why I'm so strict. As a teacher, because if I had a student like what I was, I think, I don't know if I'd be able to survive. um, but yeah, it's just, but one thing I do realize as a teacher, is students respect boundaries and structure as well, and I wasn't somebody that respected boundaries nor liked structure as well. And it's something that kind of resonated in the interview that you had with Rita Pearson's
Yeah.
daughter, and she says, I think there was an incident whereby her mum had to do like a home visit because the child's parents didn't believe that in alarm clocks for the child to get, to wake up early to get to school. And then Rita said something along the lines like, would it be okay for your child to come in or not to come into a class as they see fit? And she basically asked different questions, and then the mother, I think, eventually came into the realization that structures, are useful and helpful. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to explore another story that I took a real interest to, which was the freaky body teacher.
Yes.
I don't know.
Sylvain.
Yeah, Sylvain Helene. Hopefully I pronounced that right, or correct me if I didn't. Do you want to tell us more about his story?
Yeah, I mean, Sylvain is amazing. I think I'm tattooed, but that guy, my God. So yeah, he has pretty much a full bodysuit. I think he's had his eyeballs tattooed. He is a really individual looking teacher. I mean, there are pictures of most of the teachers in the book inside the book as well. So you will see that he's done a lot of modelling, been on TV a lot. He's a teacher over in France. I just found it really interesting, really. He teaches primary about how the pupils might react to him, and I was really keen to get his story in the book because I think it is really quite unique.
Yeah, it is, because I've never really, I think I remember when I first saw my, growing up, the first tattoo teacher, and it was only small. I was just so much shocked because there's just perception that teachers shouldn't have tattoos, but I don't know where that came from. I really don't. I don't know where that came from. I don't know how that was ingrained in me. So that was a bit of a odd one. I really don't know where I got that perception from.
I guess I think it's come from this kind of idea of what's professional, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah.
So I think it comes from there. I mean, I've written quite a lot on notions of professionalism and tattoos for Tess in the past. And some teachers do feel happy to cover their tattoos. I remember Caroline Spalding wrote a really good article for Tess a few years ago about it. She's got a couple of tattoos, and that's great if people are happy to cover them. If schools insist and they're happy to work there, that's great. It's not for everybody, and that's why I'm just glad that there's a lot of heads out there who don't really care about it, as long as somebody's looks smart.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I've only got two. I'd love to get a sleeve, but I don't know if I can bear through that pain. And I've had some students, say, "Oh, Miss, you got a tattoo in shop," but I guess it's because it's small. It's not really that visible as well. I wanted to explore the life of Natalie Scott. I did tweet an extract from the book that really resonated with me, and you touched on that about teaching being that sort of an escape, and for me, dealing with personal issues over the years, I feel like it has been an escape, but it's also been, and she talks about it being a constant, which I'm gonna read a bit, if that's okay. I don't want to get done for copyright. And I feel like for me as well, teaching's been the only thing that I can really control. Yeah, yeah. But I'm going to just read this paragraph. I did tweet it before when it said, teaching is the best job for forgetting about heartbreak or loss. Tick box. I've definitely, yeah, it definitely is. I've had a personal life like a roller coaster, broken hearts and a failed engagement, maybe because I prioritized my job over him. The loneliness I experienced whilst working in the Isle of Wight made me realise the power of kindness and softer skills, transforming my leadership style. I joke that my personal life is like an EastEnders storyline, but it really has been, teaching has been my escape, my constant. And that just really resonated with me because, you know, my school is amazing and I've had a lot of support over some issues that I've had. And I'm always told, oh, why don't you just go home? You know, it just, you know, as well meaning, they've been well meaning, go home. Obviously, you're not, you know, kind of well to be in the classroom. Not well in terms of physically, but more emotionally. But I've always said I'll stay because I don't like thinking about things, if that makes sense. And because we're always on our feet as well, I just feel like teaching really enables me to forget, you know, those struggles that I have faced. And I just wanted to, you know, ask you as well, what other stories kind of touched upon that as well for you that you've come across about teaching being an escape and a constant?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a lot that are actually like that in the book. I know Dan Morrow, he's a fantastic CEO at Dartmoor Academy Trust. He talks a lot about how, you know, teaching really, he was like me, he had a different career, and teaching really was, you know, his kind of escape, his moral purpose, really. You know, Dan came from quite a background of disadvantage, like me. His mum had to work really hard to provide for them. And then there's quite a lot of stories in there that teachers are talking about, like adversity that they've overcome. And I think for me, the one thing that kind of ties all the stories together really is how tenacious and determined teachers are. And that just shone through in almost every single story.
Yeah, definitely. Just how resilient we are. And I think COVID as well has been a true testament of that due to all the changes, technology. And then when we do go back, there's so much logistical changes. And then we just have to kind of, you know, bear with it.
Yeah.
One other story I wanted you to, I don't know how you remember these stories because there's so much. I wanted to touch on Brett's Bigham story.
Yes.
Would you be able to tell us more about Brett Bigham, please?
Yeah, so Brett is an American educator. He received some discrimination about his sexuality from his job. And he ended up actually taking him to court. I think there's a brilliant picture. I can't remember which picture we went with eventually in the book, but I think it was him. And was it the Barack Obama that I went for?
It's another gentleman.
Steve Hawkins.
Steve Hawkins.
Yeah. So I mean, he sent me like these incredible pictures. He's met some like amazing people, received awards in America for you know being a fantastic role model and teacher. You know, and his story is just one of sheer determination, really, to you know pave the way for gay educators in America to be who they want to be. So yeah, I really, really admire Brett. I think he's fantastic.
Thank you so much for sharing that. There's just so many in this. I had a list of other educators I wanted to. I wanted to explore. I think I'm familiar with Victoria Hewitt's story because I've met her before. She's amazing, and also, you know, I've seen her lead CPD. I've read her blogs, and it was nice to kind of reread that within your book as well, and just, you know, the honesty that she gives in terms of dealing with anxiety, depression, and the stresses of education. Would you be able to, you know, kind of add to that, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, Victoria is fantastic. When I wrote the book, I was very keen to have her story in. I'd reviewed her own book maybe a year or so before, where she was really honest about her mental health struggles and challenges and anxiety that she'd had in the profession. So I was just really keen to get her in there because I found her really inspirational, to be honest, as somebody who had managed to work through issues, managed to remain in the profession despite the challenges that she was facing. So I just think, hers is an amazing story to read, and she's just so supportive of other people as well on social media. So she's got a great story.
Yeah, definitely agree. She's really inspirational. I'm just going to take a quick break. I'm going to pass over to Gail to share the latest educational news. So everybody listening, still stay on. If you need to grab a cup of tea, make sure you do. If you can think of any more questions, please put in the chat, or better still, call in. So over to Gail.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News with Gail Glenn. In Scotland, First Minister Nicola Sturgeon handed millions of pounds to local authorities to buy CO2 monitors and improve ventilation in schools. But the Sunday Post newspaper has received information that some councils appear to have ignored the advice despite a growing number of outbreaks. North Lanarkshire Council said there are no plans to install monitors in any of its 162 schools, and they will rely on natural ventilation. Scientists from CERN, the world's largest particle physics lab, released a study last week which said that they found that a combination of natural ventilation, masks, and air purifiers were highly effective in the presence of a super spreader. These measures should be combined with additional safeguards such as physical distancing, hygiene, testing, contact tracing, and vaccination. EIS leader Larry Flanagan said, "We have been pushing councils to get CO2 monitors and improve ventilation in schools since Christmas, but it is still a postcode lottery. Some councils have ignored the new guidance. They're relying on keeping windows open, which you might get away with in the summer, but not in the winter." COSLA, the Association of Scottish Councils, said the Scottish Government provided £10 million of additional funding for local authorities to ensure that education and all daycare of children's services have access to CO2 monitoring, whether via mobile or fixed devices. In England, data for last year released by the Department for Education shows a wide variation in school admission appeal rates between local authorities. The lowest success rate was shown to have been in Doncaster, where appeals from parents had a win rate of only 6%, far lower than the national average of 19%. The founder of law firm schoolappeals.com, Matt Richard, said that the urban landscape of an area could be a factor in the variation in success rates. He said that appeals in rural areas could be down to logistical reasons, with schools being more than 5 miles apart. But in urban areas, cases were more likely to be down to parents simply wanting their child to be placed in a better school. He added, it can also be down to the training and advice given to independent panel members, which they stick to for their decisions. This has been your daily education news briefing.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TT Radio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
Welcome back to Teacher Talk Radio with Emily Folorunsho, me. I've been talking to Hailey Hughes about her latest book, Humans in the Classroom. And honestly, for all of us going back to school, this week, this is the fuel that we need to bear, with that feeling of, I don't want to return. So I've been asking her questions about her own journey, as well as various journeys within this book. If you haven't got it, I would definitely, recommend for you to get this. I think every teacher definitely needs this when you feel those, a lack of appreciation, or when you just kind of forget why am I doing this? You definitely need this book. Heidi, what are your hopes for your book? In the future, or how do you hope for teachers to use your book?
For me, really, I hope it appeals to just more than teachers, because I think it's important for people outside of the profession to see how fantastic teachers are and how dedicated and hardworking. And as you alluded to earlier, sometimes teachers get a bad press. We've seen it over the pandemic, haven't we, about the rhetoric of schools being closed for 6 months because obviously we were all sat around on our backsides watching Netflix series. So for me, really, I want other people outside of the profession to just, appreciate teachers for how fantastic they are.
Yeah, I personally want your book. I said it earlier on, to be turned into a series. I really do. I think it's got scope for about 3 seasons, because there's so many book stories or more.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like if you look on TikTok, for example, there's so much sketches to do with teachers, people making comedy sketches about teachers. And I think it would be, and if you look at series like Educating Yorkshire, Educating East London, the various places that have been on Channel 4, I think you need to pitch this idea somehow, somewhere, because it could be made into a great anthology series, which I would totally love. I really wanted to touch on 2 more educators before I ask my final question. I've shared this on Twitter before about my upbringing, and Kate McAllister, hopefully I pronounced her surname right. She talks about her lack of confidence in her academic abilities, and that was something that I really resonated with, because I, was fostered when I was younger, and because I was in foster care, the longest I ever stayed in a primary school, for example, was a year, about a year and a half, because I kept moving, and I think that really set me back in my academic abilities. Got a bit better in secondary school, but ultimately I was in bottom set for most things, and just worked really hard, and I did get up to like second set for English. That was about it. But I wouldn't say I was academically bright. I think I've had to always, work hard. But Kate, in her story, she says, that she left with just 2 GCSEs. And I just want to read an extract which really resonated with me. She says, "My lack of confidence in my own academic abilities meant that I mumbled around figuring out things out myself for too many years. I was convinced that any day someone would discover that I didn't have any A levels. I was clearly an idiot and didn't belong in a school. So I learned to work under the radar. I certainly didn't have the vocabulary to talk about trauma-informed practice, metacognition, or self-regulation when I first started teaching. I just had a gut feeling and my own observations and experiences to go on." So yeah, that just really resonated with me because I kind of felt, imposter syndrome, but more so a lack of confidence in my own academic abilities because I'm around very smart people, and I feel like, especially with history, I feel like I don't know everything. So I've always had to read in order to understand. And that, for me, that transparency, that's what I love about your book, how transparent everybody was about their weaknesses, about their struggles. Made me feel like I'm not alone. Did you feel like that at any time, reading some of these stories that, oh wow, I felt like I only felt like that, but actually I'm not alone. That kind of
yeah,
page dropped for you.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way through, but I think what the overwhelming feeling when I was curating these stories was just a sense of pride, really, in the profession, and just, really proud to be part of it. And to look at these colleagues who, have undergone so much, really, and battle through so much, and who make such a huge difference, in students' lives. So yeah, I mean, there was so much that resonated with me that made me feel not alone, and just a huge sense of pride.
I love that. Thank you. And then there's one more that wasn't like the most conventional, because I think she set up her own, if I remember correctly, she set up her own modelling agency. So that's Sue. Yeah. Would you be able to tell us more about Sue, please?
Yeah, so Sue is actually somebody who I know. There are several people in the book who I know personally, whose stories I knew were amazing and were teachers, and that I had to have them as part of it. Some of them I've worked with in the past, but Sue is actually a friend. So yeah, Sue, again, wasn't a massively high achiever at school, wasn't sure about what she wanted to do. And she became a hairdresser and then ended up going back to college to train other hairdressers, and to teach them literacy and math skills. And, Sue is a huge advocate for plus size models, runs an anti-bullying organisation for models, and she's just an all-round good egg, really, and a fantastic educator.
I love that, because sometimes we just think of educators being in the classroom, but there's so many that work in different kind of remits within education, like, as you said, the modelling agency, training hairdressers as well, like, vocational sort of routes, which I really love. And then my final question is, what are the similarities that you've seen among all the teachers in the book, that is there like that golden thread that ties everyone together?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is that moral purpose and wanting to make young people, sometimes at their own personal cost. And I think we can all be a little bit guilty of that as teachers. I think I talk about it in either that book or one of my other books, about the amount of, events of my own children that I've missed, and I'm ashamed to think about that now, because I think as teachers, we very do often put our own happiness and sometimes our own families behind students we teach. And I'm not saying that's right. I don't want people to be a martyr. I think that's one of the problems with the profession, actually. We're encouraged to be martyrs. We shouldn't be. But really, a lot of the teachers that I interviewed, they did see teaching as a vocation, and, their dedication just shone through.
Yeah, I just love that. Well, thank you so much, Heidi. I've really enjoyed this book, and I just hope so much, success is met with this, because, as I said before, every teacher needs to have this. It's kind of like, oh, can you hear me, Tom?
Yeah.
Is that better? Sorry, yeah, Tom just said there's a bit of rustling in my mic. I didn't realise. Sorry.
I think it's the pages.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the pages that I'm moving around, because I've got the book right next to me. Is that better? Okay, hopefully that's a bit better. But yeah, I just hope you have so much success with this. I think somebody wants to call in. I'll wait until they come in. I really do hope. I really want this to be turned into a series, personally.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Yeah,
if any producers are listening, get in touch.
Yeah,
and
please.
we can make it a reality.
Yes, please. I don't know if anybody in the live audience wants to ask a question before we do close. But is there any final remarks from you, Hailey? Anything you want teachers to remember before we do return back this
I
week?
just, yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember, especially in this term, because it's the longest. The
Yeah.
nights are dark, we're all tired, and by sort of December, you know, we're all on our knees. I completely
Yeah.
get it, I've lived it for the last 15 years. So really, I just want teachers to remember how amazing they are, and to remember that, you know, although this job is important, it's not a vocation. I think, you know, you've got to make time for you. You've got to ring fence time for your own well-being, because if you're not 100%, then, you know, that's going to impact on the students as well. So just remember how fantastic you are, and, you know, get some rest as well.
Thank you so much, Riley. Make sure you follow what you just said. It's so important that we do put our well-beings first, because you can't give from an empty cup. That's what I like to, you know, remember for myself as well. And I get really cranky if I'm not at my best as well. That's when Miss Trunchbull comes out. So so that's why I need to place my well-being there. But thank you so much, Heidi. I hope that, you know, you get all work done that you need to get done today. And what's your talk on the research ed events that you're preparing for that as well for
Yeah,
Saturday?
so that is on mentoring. So I have a book called Mentoring in Schools that has done really well. I've been amazed, to be honest, by how many copies it's sold. So I am speaking at Research Ed about how to be the best mentor you possibly can be. So one of my main kind of goals really as a doctoral researcher, I'm just about to enter my 4th year, is bridging the gap between research and practice. And that's what all of my books are about. They're underpinned by rigorous research, but are endlessly practical. And that's hopefully what my talk will be as well, with strategies that you can take away that, you know, are research informed.
I love that. How do you have the time to do everything?
A colleague used to say that I knit hours. But yeah, I don't need much sleep, and I'm very productive. So I just kind of quite relentless with getting things done, really.
Oh, I wish I was like that. I need so much sleep. I need to be like you.
Oh, well, just have a toddler. Your sleep will soon disappear then. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely bank holiday. Wishing you all the best with the CPD events that you have this week coming up. And thank you to all our listeners tune in, and we wish you a happy and safe return back to school this week. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hailey, as well.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, guys.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.